Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my topics and my thoughts. I didn't realize that not all of you are employed by the Vrije Universiteit or the UVA or the VUMC or the AMC. So I tried to change my talk and make it a little bit more generic. But first of all, in 10 seconds, I've been a tour leader a long time ago. I'm married, I got some kids. I want them to be PhDs and can get regular jobs. And as introduced, I'd like to play the bass. And when I'm really tired of all of you, I withdrew myself in my small place in France. So that's how my life is. But that's not why you're here. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the basics of the library nowadays. What we can do to support your systematic review. Perhaps a little bit more about pure ORCID and how to expose yourself, and at the end, of course, open access. I just got some ideas of Lex talk, so perhaps I'll improvise a little bit more. But first of all, for those who are working here, please be aware that if you follow, for instance, your PhD trajectory, you're subject to different rules, and you can use several library systems dependent on who is hiring you. So if there's confusion about, for instance, your pure records, please check your payroll, see whether it's the AUMC, the VUMC, the Vrije Universiteit, or perhaps even the University of Amsterdam, or whatever university you're employed. That is the library who needs to help you, or the system. For my library, together with the budget of the medical library of the Vrije Universiteit, together we spent about 4 million euros. We invested in a national consortium consisting of 13 universities and 8 UMCs, and together we buy you about 90% of the world literature. So at present, my guess is you have access to more than 50 million articles, subscribed or open. Subscribed only, and then all the open access articles on top of that. So as Lex was stating earlier, open access is not that important. No, it is not if you're working in the Netherlands. If you're working outside the Netherlands, it can be quite different. In Yale, for instance, or in Boston, you have only access to perhaps 60% of our collection. So please imagine, these are the very large universities of the world. Okay. Well, that's an enormous amount of money, of course, and most of them are going to the private publishers. Some argue that it's not a good way to do it. On the other hand, please keep in mind as well that by doing so, in the AUMC only, you have we see that our researchers download about 1,500,000 articles annually, and they're pretty happy using it. To do so, and this is applicable for any university you work, just try your library links. They're pretty hard to find. They're mostly in grim language, but they give you access to most of the journals, or all of the journals. If you go to Google Scholar, you perhaps get most of them. And if you got any other links, well, perhaps if you're lucky, you get 75% of your library links. So please try to find your library site if it's applicable. It's not very convenient, but it's most complete. Perhaps you're overwhelmed with that amount of that number of articles. We have got a clear support system in the AUMC and the VUMC of information specialists who helps about 1,000 reviews annually. So please, if you have any question, how do I start my systematic scoping or living review or whatever you call it, please help them for support. To do so, of course, there's a grim form somewhere in the library system, and what you need to do is to prepare yourself a little bit. Their service is in high demand. They offer a very professional service, and if you want to make the best out of it, prepare yourself by, fill out the PICO, select what kind of study you want, what kind of database you want to be searched, etc., etc. I don't go into details. I'm not an information specialist myself, So I'll try not to pretend to know too much about it, but they're there and there for you to use. The other part is how to expose yourself. Well, this is our Madame, our professor, and our director of the research services of the AmsterdamUMC. If you are working in de Vrije Universiteit, the University of Amsterdam, or the AUMC or the EPMC, you can have a page like this yourself, and you can. What do you need to do? So, well, first of all, create your ORCID. Usually, there's a lot of questions about what is an ORCID, but if I understand it correctly, you already have one. Please, the next step, and that's important, link your ORCID in Scopus to your Scopus author IDs or your Web of Science author IDs, or even better, to both. Perhaps you're asking yourself, well, I never made myself a Scopus author ID. Well, Elsevier did it for you. And if they're not linked, your ORCID is not able to identify your publications properly in Scopus or in Web of Science, or perhaps not even in PubMed. Then, if you're working at the Vrije Universiteit, at the VUMC, excuse me, if you're working at the VUMC, enter your ORCID in PeopleSoft, and then the library will follow your publications automatically and add them to the Pure system and add them to your personal page on the website. The last thing you need to do for yourself is go to Pure, log on with your usual password and your usual personal identifier, add your specialization, your focus of research, if you want, your key pubs, and most important, your photo. Then you do your research. Sorry, a little bit too fast. And before you submit your paper, please check your open science obligations and options. I don't think that if we open up everything, the world becomes really better, but it certainly helps science, and it makes us more, how shall I put it, careful on what we publish. Well, what do we need? Well, what's open science in general? It's just an aim to make science better, to improve science, and that's all about being sincere, being open, being fair. So it's perhaps a little bit schoolish, but please pay attention to what you cite and how you prevent plagiarism. I'll get back to it in a minute. What open access publish options do you have? And in the end, if there's any minutes left, just a few thoughts about be fair with your data. First of all, we made an e-learning. It's open for the web. It's called Correct Citation, but what it does is it focuses a little bit on plagiarize. And I guess you all know what plagiarism is. Since 2014, my library scans every PhD thesis on plagiarism. 200 PhD theses annually. And 70% of them are okay, and then 30%, there's a little confusion, or worse. So here's a very easy step for all researchers to take. And of course, what even helps better is start in time with a tool like Endnote. And there's also a very nice LibGuide, a very nice e-learning how to use Endnote properly. And if you have questions, again, go to the library, ask them for support, it's their job. Enough about writing. As mentioned in my introduction, I do a lot of talking with publishers, and at present in the Netherlands, we have 12 what we call read and publish deals. So you have access to all the journals of those publishers, and you have the option to publish open access without payment, without paying an APC, and with a 100% discount in in all major publishers, with the exception of Nature. Together, it offers you the option of 11,000 journals, hybrid journals, high impact sector journals, like the Lancet. You can publish there without paying anything at all. My personal estimation is that 70% of the papers we submit as the AmsterdamUMC are covered by these 11,000 journals. Another category is the full open access journals. We don't have deals there, but at least then it's open access. And you do what your funder wants you to do. If all else fails, you can publish your article green as an accepted manuscript. I'll get back to it in a minute. How to select your journal? Well, I'll show you two options, but there are several more. For those who are working in the AmsterdamUMC, there is the AmsterdamUMC journal browser. The nice thing about it is that it shows how many articles are published by our own departments in those journals. And of course, it adds the impact factor and what you need to do for open access and what discounts are available. If you're not working here, there's also the national journal browser covering all disciplines. It works quite the same, and you can see what options you have there. It's easily to find. Just enter openaccess.nl in your browser, and you get a lot of information. By the way, all the links presented here are at the end of my presentation. They will be sent around. If Gold Open Access is not an option, please let us know. There are several solutions. One of them is the PubMed Central Europe. It recently became available for all papers funded by the NWO or by the ERC. And if that's not the case, you can always use our own AmsterdamUMC repository. Then there was some questions about CC BY. Well, basically what it says is, if you put your article out there open access, Plan S and your funders demand you to publish what we call CC BY, which means you can do whatever you want with my article, with my text, as long as you say it's mine. Okay, you cite correctly. And there are several variations. One of them is share alike. So if you make a derivative, please make it open access available as well. You can exclude commercial use, or you can exclude derivatives. I think it's pretty straightforward, but please keep in mind your funder wants you to pay to publish CC BY or CC BY share alike. Unfortunately, I guess all of you had some phishing emails about your bank account or someone in Africa offering you millions of whatever currency they're offering. So if you got an email inviting you to submit your paper to a journal you've never heard about, or to become a member of a board of a journal you never heard about, well, please use your common sense, check your colleagues, and if really in doubt, check for instance, the directory of open access journals. Is the open access journal registered? Koan does the same. The links are at the end. And most important, of course, if you have seen Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds, there's that wonderful scene where Brad Pitt says, if a deal is too good to be true, it ain't. Usually it's just that simple. The thumb rule to publish open access is to affiliate your paper correctly and let the publisher know you're a member of the AmsterdamUMC and of the University of Amsterdam or the Free University. And if there's enough options in your submitting scheme, you help the pure team, my team, enormously if you add your research institute and your program as well. And then your funder, if you use your ORCID, usually with all the large publishers, the ORCID is used as well in the administration, and it pops up in Web of Science and in Scopus. And the last thing you need to do is select the open access button. In any case, with any questions, you can always ask the library for help. And then perhaps the most difficult part when your paper is published, you're not there yet. From my point of view as a librarian, the reproduction crisis, like Stoll is all about, is that we can't even find the data on which you based your research. So please store them properly. We have got some nice options, and add the link to your research data to your paper and add it to Pure if possible. And if possible, also add your metadata scheme. I'll show it in a minute. And if applicable, it helps a lot if you fill out the EU clinical trial register. We just had a researcher checking the trial register, and of 700 of the AmsterdamUMC studies, none of them is completed entirely, which is a very poor score. The metadata scheme, well, it is pretty straightforward in most cases. We're studying on how to help you the best. It's not my department, this is the RDM department, but usually it's something like what kind of sample do you have? What do you know about the subjects, etc., etc. There will be more about this when we raise the metadata and when we raise the data scheme and we raise the options to store your data very cheap in our SURF research data archive. I think that's it. But one last remark. I was triggered by one of the things Alex mentioned earlier. When you read a paper, I learned a long time ago that we should not start to read the abstract, but read the method section first. And if you don't trust the method section, stop reading. Otherwise, you'll be lurching, I've read something and I don't know, but the conclusion was, instead of, I didn't like the paper because the method section wasn't correct. So this is my last suggestion for you. Any questions? You're more than welcome.
Thank you very much, Lieuwe. Could you please stop share? Yeah, then we can see everybody again. Okay. Very nice talk, and I'm very happy to hear all the opportunities to help. Well, actually, to get it open access published without having to pay all that money every time. So I'll definitely have a look at all those sites. Are there any questions? Mariska.
Yes, Lieuwe, you mentioned the research storage place for research data. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Is that accessible through the AMC or VUMC, or is it from the university or the AmsterdamUMC?
It is the SURF has a large just received large funding to organize our storage. It will take a couple of months to organize it, but as soon as we have the whole thing with Yoda and IRAD started, we need to involve the storage as well. We'll get back to as soon as possible. I just want to mention that to be able to reproduce, you don't want to have the paper as is only. You need to have the data and the metadata scheme and the method section as well. And if there's any software involved, it should be available through a software repository like GitHub or something. But then at least you have the ingredients to reproduce. And most of the time, we don't even have the ingredients, so we don't know how to do it.
Okay, yeah, I understand that, and I know other places to store my data, like Zenodo or OSF, but yeah, I didn't know of the SURF option. And you said somewhere that it was very cheap. Does that mean that it will be free for us, or that it costs something, or is it very cheap for the university?
It will be very cheap for us, but that depends on the amount of the number of data you would store, of course. But most of it, what I'm trying to say is that within the research support group, I'm a member of the research support group, the awareness has risen that we need to offer you options to store your data in a safe place to be able to share it if you want to, instead of just do whatever you want, and when your PhD has left, no one knows where the data is.
Yeah, very good. Okay.
Any more questions? Pam, I think you have a question. Oh, Lex, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I was a bit surprised, Lieuwe. You seem to suggest that 30% of PhD theses have a level of plagiarism. I don't believe that.
No. That's a misunderstanding. What I said is that they're not citing correctly. So when you use the Authenticate tool, for instance, there are a lot of unexplainable citations. So what happens then is that we go back to the promoter or to the PhD student, and he has to refine his citations. And in most of the cases, it solves a lot of the problems.
And by citation, you mean a string of words or one of the items on the reference list? Because we use the term for both of these.
A string of words.
Yeah.
And please keep in mind, these articles have been, parts of these theses has been submitted to a journal earlier.
So I would call that false alarm. Is that correct?
No, that's double alarm. That means that someone's journal didn't check properly their text.
Okay, there is a string of words from another author you're stealing without proper referencing.
Stealing,
is that what you say?
Stealing is a very nasty word. It's not.
You know what I mean.
I think you should be more precise.
Yeah, but you're recycling words by someone else without giving him or her the honor. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we call that plagiarism, and I don't believe it's 30%.
When they have rechecked their paper, they add a lot of citations.
Yeah, sure. You can tweak it by changing a few words and teasing out that Authenticate gives no alarm anymore.
Yeah. But, well,
so Lex, sorry, you are saying that you think that the 30% is too low.
It's too high. It's so high. The point is that there has been a lot of research on this. The problem with this software is that it gives false alarm all over the place. Well, you know about tests, Mariska. It's the usual problem. And you get a percentage of overlap with other text. Well, when you leave out citations, you are rid of that false alarm. When you published already part of your thesis, you need to remove that false alarm as well. And then normally when it's more than 20, 30 or 40%, 20, 25 is normal, overlap between text, then you are in danger of being a plagiarism. Well, by chance, you can replicate a string of words unintentionally. Right? Usually these are your own words, you remember, but forgot you wrote them down before. But all that stuff you need to sort out before you can say it's plagiarism.
Thank you so much, Lex. That's exactly what we do.
That's good. That's a lot of work.
That's a lot. So we have a student, we train them, and then they scan the PhD thesis, and even then, 30% shows some things we can't explain by doing the things you just mentioned.
Yeah, that's a lot. I'm amazed. I'm amazed. All Dutch universities are looking at it, and a number of abroad, and this is way higher than I expect. So, if it is correct, and I believe you, of course, when you say so, we need to do something about it.
That's why I mentioned the e-learning.
Yeah. And another thing is, of course, if I may, one small piece, Wieneke, more. Which amazed me in your talk, Lieuwe, is that no one added the results to a registered randomized clinical trial from our center. There is some room for improvement there as well, isn't there?
I guess so. Huh.
It's really amazing.
You perhaps you were on holiday leave in August when it gets to the headlines of the NRC.
Yeah, August is not the best time to hit headlines, I believe.
Not well, fortunately for us, but there's some room to improve here as well.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I'll mention that in my talks as well.
Please keep in mind that some of those trials are properly registered elsewhere, but we promised to do it in the EU Clinical Trials Register as well.
Aha, you didn't check the other registers.
No. As soon as you're a researcher, you got funded, and you promised to present your results in, well, perhaps trial.gov or and EU clinical trials as well. On some parts, you didn't do it.
Okay, so that makes it less awful. When it's at least somewhere, that's okay.
It depends on your kind of personality. Yeah. I think you have the obligation to do so, as you did, as you promised to publish open access, as you promised to publish your, well, to open up your data on whatever conditions. This is part of the job.
Okay, back to Wieneke. This is not our story.
Did you had a question? I'm a little bit in doubt whether you had a question before. Pam Dupont. No? Okay. Then there is one last question, I think, in the chat. Ty, would you like to ask it yourself?
Yeah, perhaps I can just say out loud. I would like to know if there is any initiatives or discussions, this can be also to Lex, to both of you, at both sides, around potentially predatory journals or publishers. Because there are some that are quite black and white, and we can say that they're predatory, so we don't publish there. But there are some that are still a bit difficult to evaluate by the researchers. So for instance, here I'm citing the MDPI journals, and I would like to know if there's something on that on the institutional level about that.
Not as I know.
Maybe I can say a few words then. There used to be that Beals list of predatory open access journals. It's a kind of blacklist, but it was closed down 3 years ago. It's still on the web, but it's never has been updated, and there was a lot of discussion about it. Then there is a commercial provider called Cables, I believe. They have a similar thing, but I don't believe our library is paying for it, so that is out of the question. And then the third thing is that there is a thing called open access research market or something like it. I have to look the link, and that's a TripAdvisor for publication. It's filled with reviews by you, how much you had to pay, whether the service were okay, whether you felt cheated or whatever, and then you get bullets or stars or whatever, and it's quite a neat thing. So maybe Lieuwe or I can do that as well. Provide a link. It's a great tool made in Nijmegen from the university library there.
Thanks, Lex. I'm aware of some of these initiatives. I was wondering if really at the institution we have something like a list of hours, so then the researchers could rely on that and not doing the decision by themselves, let's say.
No, I'm afraid it's not there. There is this directory of open access journals, but there is a lot of bullshit journals on that list as well.
That's entirely true, but if the journal is not there, you should raise yourself the question, why should I submit here?
Yeah, that's a good point. Never go to a journal you've never heard about.